Today we are tasting New Zealand style Hazy IPA. Wonderful. All right, so what do we have going on here today? We have 5 New Zealand style Hazy IPAs that we picked up randomly in the supermarket. This is not a formal review. I'm not judging these beers. I'm simply trying them curiously, commenting on their characteristics. Maybe we'll see how they're different from American style Hazy IPA. And as we often do on the channel, I like to pick a favorite. I'll run through these really quick. We're gonna taste them blindly so that there will be no bias. There wouldn't be any bias anyway because I'm not familiar with any of these beers, but it does help me objectively analyze these beers and offer my thoughts. First beer that we have is Fog City Hazy IPA from a place called Good George Brewing Company. Looks like this guy actually contains lactose, which I don't know if any of the other ones do, but this might be a little bit different than the others. Proudly made in Hamilton, New Zealand, which Lauren and I were actually very fortunate to drive through when we had a few days on the North Island. We actually visited the Hamilton Gardens there, which was amazing. If you haven't done that, or if you're planning a trip to the North Island, Hamilton Gardens is epic. Second beer we have here is Super Juice Hazy IPA. Fun label there. The guy's holding the beer up from Bach Brewing Company. Looks like this guy comes in at 6.2% ABV, loaded with hops from Nelson, Tasmania, and the West Coast. That's pretty sweet. So Australian hops in this guy also. These folks are from Auckland. Next beer we have to try today is Garage Project Party and Bullshit. Sounds like Party and Bullshit Hazy IPA is an East Coast anthem IPA. Big old pop of hops, packing an intense mango tropical fruit hit from us big guns Simcoe and Mosaic. 6.2%. Here we go. Next up is a really simple, elegant can from our friends at Sawmill Brewing. 5.9%. And the can doesn't offer much. Looks like they are a certified B Corp, which is pretty cool. They brew in Motueka. And the last beer that we'll sample today is Tuatara Evolution Optical Hazy IPA. These folks are brewing in Para Mu, New Zealand. Probably butchered that. I'm sorry. We're going to give this guy a try and see what we think. Right now I'm going to turn around and let Michael pour these beauties for me so I can taste them blindly. All right. One of the things that I'm struck by with the New Zealand beers especially is how modest they are. I really enjoy the idea that a lot of these beers that posit themselves as hazy style IPAs come in at 5.8 to 6.2% alcohol. All right, so in the glass, these guys take on a very, very different appearance. If I'm comparing these guys based on appearance to American style hazy IPA, there's a couple here in the panel that are a little bit different than what we might expect at home. I'm not sure if this is going to render on camera, but this sample here, second from my left, is a little more of that milky hazy appearance that's very in vogue in the United States and you see basically uniformly across the board. This guy here has a little bit more of that almost hazy unfiltered but West Coast style IPA, which falls between the more modern examples and the more historical examples that were unfiltered on the West Coast in the United States. With that said, let's dive into smelling and tasting these beauties. Sample number 1. Nice, got some orange, clementine, a little bit of like cedar and woodiness going on. Not too much yeast phenolic, a little bit of fermentation character going. See how she tastes. Interesting, yeah. I like the hazy pale ales. One of the things that I'm struck with in these IPAs, having drank them during our stay and not necessarily this panel, is that they're dry, they're soft. They don't have that rich sweetness in the full mouthfeel that we have in America, generally speaking. And this guy is a consistent example of that. A little bit of orange rind, a little bit of clementine. Falls more on the underripe fruit characteristics than the sweet overripe fruit, but it's all right. Moving on to sample number 2, the haziest of the hazies of this bunch. Ooh, a little bit of white wine there. Like, this guy's got a tang to it, tangy. Sweet tarts, like mango gummies a little bit. Again, it has that kind of underripe character, rindy character on the nose. Nice, yeah, dry. Same thing, citrus rind, punchy, a little bit of white grape. Not a ton of bitterness, just enough to let you know it's hanging around. Nice. Sample number 3. This guy's got some translucency to it, similar to this sample, like an unfiltered West Coast beer potentially. Man, rind is the name of the game. Underripe is the name of the game. Underripe pineapple, underripe citrus. Interesting. This guy has a bit richer and fuller of a mouthfeel. Doesn't translate into flavor, but that carbonation's a little brighter, a little more rich on the palate with those orange notes coming forward. Good amount of similarity between these 3 beers in structure and texture, with this guy being a bit on the fuller side. Sample number 4. Oh yeah, a little bit of bubblegum. Mixed tropical fruit. Interestingly, I'm not getting a lot of the familiar New Zealand characteristics when I smell these beers. I'm not sure how they're all hopped, but I'm not getting that like ruby red grapefruit. I got a little bit of white wine in one of these guys, but generally speaking, those bright aromatic New Zealand characteristics have not been present in these particular examples. Nice, nice. A little bit of red berry, a little bit of like tropical fruit. Once again, the texture is really medium, dry beer, dry drinkability, not a super rich or full mouthfeel. Moving on to the final sample in the New Zealand style Hazy IPA tasting. Interesting. This guy's got some orange rind. It's got some anise, like licorice. A little bit of fruit leather going on. Yeah, this one's got some really classic, almost like centennial-y, Simcoe-y, Chinook-y, pine oil and licorice notes. Definitely a standout, being different from the other 4 in the panel. Texture is medium bodied, similar to sample number 3, not overwhelming, but somewhere in the middle. I'm going to kind of go back through, see if I can't pick out anything that I didn't pick out the first time. I'm going to pick a favorite, talk about what we experienced here, and we're going to wrap it up. There's definitely a theme with Hazy New Zealand style IPA. They are medium to light bodied. They're on the lower end of the alcohol spectrum, and they're much, much softer than our American counterparts. In many ways, the American counterparts are sometimes an example in excess. They're hopped very aggressively. Sometimes they can even be astringent if they're not quite right. These guys are actually very pleasant with their drinkability and modesty, and I appreciate that very much. Few of these beers were bought warm off the shelf, so I'm trying to think through to what they were when they were at their brightest and their freshest. Drinkability is the name of the game. Between samples 1 and 4, 1 has a little bit of residual. I'm gonna go back in one final time, sample number 4. Yeah, she's got some of that nice overripe fruit character that we strive for and make at Treehouse. So yeah, I'd be, let's see. Sample number 4 is my favorite of this panel. What are we drinking? No way! Wow! Dude! Sawmill with the twofer. Yeah, I have to say, the Hazy Pale drank a lot of on this trip, and these beers just hit the right note of drinkability and saturation. They're not super familiar to American style Hazy IPA. There's a distinct difference. There's a roundness, there's a dryness, and there's a lack of excess that I really enjoyed when I drank all these beers, and particularly the Sawmill. So again, guys, these samples weren't crazy curated. We had very, very limited time. We did what we could to give these guys a shot and share our thoughts with you. We picked them up in the supermarket. I'm not sure if they were in optimal condition, but we did the best that we could, and we hope you enjoyed watching this, and make sure you get subscribed, leave your thoughts down below, and we'll see you next time.